Find yourself a comfy chair, grab a pen and paper. Get ready to learn secret nuggets, the secret sauce to conquering your entrepreneurial dreams from today's top influencers. She's the jewel of the crown of the Pheiff Group, founder of the Crazy Ones community, with her distinctive voice known everywhere. Your host, Connie Pheiff.
So we have with us right now Kevin E. West. Uh, Kevin, um, love you to death, buddy. Kevin has been he's like an old shoe, like an old penny.
Oh,
And
right.
he's here. He's here. Come on. It's Kevin E. West. He is the Hollywood redneck. He is an actor. He is an author. He's a humorist. His book series is Kevin's Dictionary, Life in the Word. And he is the communication entrepreneur. And you're
Oh,
going to recognize him from shows like Criminal Minds, Hawaii Five-O, Lost, 24, Justified. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of everything that he's involved with. I mean, our show isn't long enough to go into everything Kevin has done. And in addition, he is a pretty good golfer himself. So, Kevin, welcome to the show.
thanks very much. I think I qualify because I know I'm disruptive. I'm definitely crazy, but I guess I have to be also all in with a heart. So we're good.
You're good. You're good. That's right. You fit right in with the heart. So Kevin, I'm gonna jump off and I'm gonna give you the space so you could share your message because I know it is so valuable to people what you're sharing right now. So I'm gonna take myself away and I'm gonna give it all to you. Kevin E. West.
Thanks for joining very much. Yes, Kevin E. West. And it's very important that I start right off the bat by saying I am a communication freak. Now, I know that Connie just said communication entrepreneur. The truth of the matter is that just looks better on a website or on a business card than freak. But the truth is, I'm a communication freak. And while I don't exactly know how I became that, the bottom line is that I am. And it's very, very important to me to try and help people become omnipotent communicators. And to that end, I just need to, she shared a little bit of my background, but I want to share a little bit with you guys about my journey, which is related to the entire subject today. In that I grew up in a very rural part of the South in the 70s, and I mean the middle of nowhere. And, just kind of consider myself Huckleberry Sawyer, if you will. Three fishing poles, baseball, football, and eventually became a collegiate golfer, a walk on, because as I like to say, I was good enough to know how good I wasn't. And then one day, I woke up after having grown up in a single parent home on top of everything else, and I decided to be a performer. Oh, yes. And that led me to moving to Hollywood, where I have been for some 3+ decades. And on top of the fact that I've, yes, been in over 50 some guest star television shows and films, and no, you're not required to recognize me. It's okay. Along the way, because in part of, living in Hollywood, a place like LA full of pretend and magic and a whole bunch of other stuff, I'm not really sure how I became a communication freak, but I did. And a lot of that was based on simply where I was. But I also built my own company, an award winning organization out of nothing. I have written 3 books, and I also produced about 43 live events on top of all the television that I did. And the reason why I share that with you guys is that's part of my journey, the journey that I've been through. And the entire conversation that I want to have with you today is about the organic journey of communication, because that's a piece of my story. You have a story. We all have a story, and we have a journey. And it's easy for somebody to look at someone like myself and go, yeah, Kev, sure, you're a storyteller. I mean, you've taken other people's words and you performed it and you've written things, and that's true. But I want to say right at the top of the show today, I want you to be clear, and I'd love for you to write this down, that you are a storyteller, because that's what communication is. I mean, come on, whether you like a song or whether you like a good book or certainly a good movie or a good TV show, the bottom line is that's a story. And we enjoy them when they're told well. And so when it comes to your own communication, the communication that starts down here, 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 and all comes together to come out here, be it you talking like this, or whether you're texting or whether you're typing an email. All communication is a story, and you are a storyteller. Now, some of those communications are really short, as we know. The cat sat on the mat. Well, yes, I stole that line from a movie, which I do all the time. Sure, in the world we live in today, a lot of our communications are very short. Some of them are a novel, some of them are just the cliff notes, and some of them are an encyclopedia with one or two people you've been having a conversation with since you were 12 years old. The reality is, all of that communication is a story, and it's predicated on your story and your journey. And one of the things that I've come to as I slowly became a communication freak and somebody who is a performer in Hollywood, because at the end of the day, I'm not just a freak, I'm also a complete goofball. Smart aleck is a nice way to put it. But on the way to that journey, we have to stop and realize that in the world we live in today, just take this in for a moment on your end. Understand that today, between all the platforms and all the mechanisms, we currently, every millisecond of every moment of every day, globally, are communicating more at a faster pace than any other time in history. Full stop, bar none, end of conversation, period. And no different than the 405 freeway, which Connie knows very well here in Los Angeles, or the worst traffic spot in your neighborhood, or back when we finally one day get back to the time when we indeed will be standing in line to get into a concert or trying to crash the gate at a football game we want to get into. If you put too much traffic in a small space, somebody going to get hurt. And that's what happens a lot of times to our communication. It just is. And that's what we're busy doing every single day. We're in a constant tornado of communication, and a lot of mistakes get made. Now, we all have a lot of favorite quotes. I certainly have mine. I know you have yours. But I'm going to share a new one with you in case you don't happen to know this one. And it's kind of the premise of why I talk about communication from the standpoint of being a freak about it. And it was stated by George Bernard Shaw. And again, you might want to jot this one down. It says the problem with communication is the illusion that it's actually taken place. And while, yes, that's kind of damn funny, the truth of the matter is when you're a part of communication that's gone awry, it actually isn't. And I want to address that real quick because you have balance in life, right? We have balance. You have the seven sins, you have the seven virtues. So when he said illusion in his statement about communication, I want everyone to just stop for a second and realize I'm not talking about the extremes that are on both ends, okay? We are not discussing when somebody is purposefully trying to be deceitful, purposefully trying to be manipulative, or purposefully lying to you. When I discuss the organic journey of communication, I'm never discussing those instances. I'm talking about the standard, everyday, normal, varied emotion kind of communication we have with our colleagues, with our superiors, with our subordinates, with our friends, family, relatives, spouses, lovers, parents, kids. That's what I mean. That conversation. And he didn't use illusion in a bad way. He used it in the fact that the opposite of that would simply be the word specificity. And the reality is, guys, I know that everybody watching this, no matter where you are, I know we all have the ability to be specific in our communication. We do it all the time. But at the same time, we also sometimes leave out a lot of specificity. And that's really more where I'm coming from in terms of being a communication freak. Because my question, as Connie just said before I came on, which is a question I will continue to ask you, and that I'm also going to help answer for you today in a brief period of time, is why? Why is it in those moments are we not specific? Well, when I started digging into this, as I had come out of golf and psychology without a degree, and I thought about this and my life began to evolve and I wound up in Hollywood, I found myself ironically continuing to go back to the very craft and the very technique that I was required to learn as an actor. And I'd like to say that I'm pretty good at it. I've done an awful lot of shows. But to that end, the point being is that underneath that craft of acting is the constant question of why. Just like the little 3-year-old goes, "Why is the sky blue, Daddy?" Exactly. There's always a lot of why, because I have to take from an inorganic standpoint of someone else's words written on the outside, and I have to make decisions about those words to the point that when I perform them, you watching believe I believe what I'm saying. Yet when we do this inside of ourselves, it happens organically. Gut, heart, mind, see with a heart, and it comes out of here or here or here. And I began to realize how much that important craft that I had learned as an actor was actually the very foundation of being a really, really omnipotent communicator. And that's what I want to see more people become. And in that, I realized over the course of time that there are three truths, three incontrovertible truths about communication. And you'll find for me, I do a lot of things in three. I have no idea why. There's a lot of things I do. I have no idea why. But there's three. And I came up with them, and here they are. And I would encourage you to write them down. Number one, communication errors are inevitable. Absolutely. Guys, we're human beings. We're not cyborgs. Me talking with you today is not about you someday becoming perfect at communication. I try really hard all the time, and I make mistakes. But I work really hard to get it as right as often as I possibly can. But I'm going to share this challenge with you today, because that's part of where Connie comes from and where we come from in Constant Talent Concierge. Is I want to challenge you this. If you just became a better communicator by 10% for the next 5 years, 50% better communicator 5 years from now, it will change your life. The reason I say that is because my name in Hollywood is Kevin E. West. And a long time ago, I decided that the E no longer stands for my middle name. It stands for efficiency, because what I have a hard time with is I have a hard time with the struggle and the waste of time as it pertains to poor communication. You see, I don't know the audience watching today. It's possible some people are in their late teens, some people in their 20s, 30s. But I will say this for all those watching who have a 4 in front of their age or a 5 in front of their age, one of the things that makes its way up the chart in priority in our lives when we get older and we have more past than future is the word time. 100%. That's what it is. And so my acting coach used to talk with people in class, just as all acting coaches do. And it was funny to listen to an actor talk about the scene they just did, which really isn't them, but yet they were the person doing it. And they would always wind up talking and changing the language and speaking to him and use the word it, as if there was some other human being in the room that wasn't yourself. My acting coach would look at them and go, wait a minute, who's the it? Because from where I sit, the it is you. And that's correct. It's about ourselves. When I wanted to become a better communicator, yes, eventually a freak, I get it, but I wanted to become one, I realized that this is organic. It starts with me. That's where it starts. I'm the it. I'm responsible. And so when you address it from that standpoint, it actually becomes easier. It's like, okay, what do I need to do? And so as I began drilling down on that, and again, I'm a big advocate of things in threes, I became aware that when I thought about the third truth, which I haven't even said yet, the third truth is what this is all predicated on. Because the third incontrovertible truth, number two, is that all protocols and processes for communication are universal. I know that we like to believe that language or somehow the country we live in would make it different, but it isn't. The first truth is that human error is inevitable. Absolutely is. Truth number two is the protocols that make for good communication are universal. Yes, other cultures and languages may or may not use various colorful words or different idioms or phrases, but omnipotent communication globally still has the same principles and protocols. But the third incontrovertible truth about communication is communication that causes chaos or confusion is incredibly expensive. There's a big price to pay for that. Now, sometimes literally you could make a mistake and it would cost you something legally and it would actually cost you in that way. in your profession, or it could cost you your job by the way you communicate. But we've all been through the emotion of bad communication with a relationship or a friend. There's a heavy price to pay for communication confusion. And I'm simply someone who, a long time ago, living in a place like Hollywood where everything is a facade and a mirror, and being a Southern boy, wanted some more concrete to that. And so I became a communication freak because of incontrovertible truth. Number three, I don't want to waste time. I don't want the confusion and chaos. And I'm going to bet that you probably don't want to spend an extra 22 texts on something that should have taken two, or an extra 3 or 4 or 5 emails over a weekend trying to correct or resolve something that should have been done on Friday. So that's why I'm such an advocate of being an omnipotent communicator, because the organic journey starts with oneself, no question. But the question is, why does it go awry so often in the craziness of every day? How does communication go awry? And here's the threes. It's a new three because I'm full of threes. And I just now said the word cost, and I said price, and I said expensive. But I'm going to give you a different word because we are all constantly traveling on our road of communication. And that is, when communication goes wrong, we all pay a fee for it. It's like a toll road of the road of communication that we're on. We built it, we're driving on it, we said it, we wrote it, we texted it. But the question is, what does fee stand for? F period, E period, E period. Fear, ego, and envy. These three things exist in all of us. And if you're going to try and assess how to begin bettering something, whether it's your physical shape or your diet, you have to start at the ground floor. Where inside of this organic journey of communication do things go wrong? And I'm sharing with you that the fee that we pay for poor communication is born out of fear, ego, and envy. And it starts with ourself. I mean, yeah, it's like a selfie, only it's spelled differently. There we go. I just invented something. But that's what it is. Now, I'm not trying to get too deep in a short period of time, but that is the basis for this. However, as you might imagine, there's a much larger macro that hangs over this, which is really the core foundation and the core answer of why I'm here today. And that is because the organic journey of communication, we don't tend to be as proactive about communication as we are reactive. And therefore, the foundation of communication actually stems from another three. And please write fee down, fear, ego, envy. And by all means, write down A, E, I. Audience, environment, and intent. Because most of the time in our lives, we are dealing with communication based on what's coming at us, the audience of who we're talking to, just like something you have to address as an actor. Who is this person? Why do they dress like that? Why are they going here? Why are they going there? Why would they say that? The environment of where you are, and certainly the intent of what you're trying to accomplish. And the funny part is, I used to say this to actors all the time when I would talk to them, that if I gave you a set of words to say, and you actually did and had those conversations with one or two or three or four people, you can pick your audience. And you had the conversation on the phone, or you had the conversation in the conference room at the office, back when we could do that sort of thing, or even in the environment of Zoom. Please make sure you have your pants on. Thanks. Sorry, I couldn't avoid that. This is why I'm a goofball. Or you had it in a public park, or you had it in the kitchen of your own house. Same exact conversation. I'm sharing with you those four conversations, if they were recorded, would be different. The environment that we deal with in our lives has a great deal of basis for our communication, just as who we're speaking to and the intent. And the reality is, most of the time, we would say we know the intent. We know the desire of what we wanted to do in that text or that email or that conversation. So, how does it go awry? Fear, ego, and envy. because audience members sometimes are people that we know really well. And if we had much longer today, I could extend this conversation when I do executive coaching or executive mentoring, and I get much deeper into the audience part of that because there's this old phrase of familiarity breeds contempt, right? But in communication, familiarity is a huge killer a huge killer of communication because we presume and assume, the person knows me, they know what I'm talking about. And what fear, ego, and envy actually cause us to do based on audience environment and even our intent is we sometimes choose to be silent when we shouldn't be. And we sometimes omit things from our communication. And I promise you that omission and silence are not the same thing. Whoever came up with ghosting came up with something that should never be done. Yes, you could say silence is a form of communication. I just don't. Silence will never be a form of communication to me because I live my life by the four agreements, and one of them is don't assume. So, this is what happens to us when we're dealing with our audience, because who you talk to matters, and we deal with the environment where we are and the intent what we have, because we're intentful people. But man, can fear, ego, and envy derail all three of those things, and you forget yourself or your intent gets thwarted a bit. This is what happens to us when we communicate. And that's why the organic journey of communication is so important because it takes it all the way back to what I said. You are a storyteller, telling stories every millisecond of every day on an extremely busy, crowded highway. And that's why oftentimes Shaw said the illusion that it's actually taken place. And the three truths that we're going to make mistakes, but let's make less of them. The principles are the same, and we don't want our communication to cause too much confusion. But it comes down to us, and there's a fee to pay. And the more we start learning about it right now, the better off we will be. Because I don't know how I became a communication freak. I'll be really honest with you, I don't. But I do know this. I know why I've been speaking to people since 1991. And I absolutely know why I'm here today. And that is because when I speak, I only have one purpose, and that is it. And that is to create organic, positive change in any audience I'm speaking to. Whether I'm standing in a room in my house, talking to a screen, having no idea how many people are out there, or if I run a stage with 5,000 people. The only reason I speak is that. My name is Kevin E. West, and the cool kids call me Kevin E. Communication entrepreneur, but really communication freak. Thanks for your time. I can't hear you yet.
Hey, Will. Okay, there we
Oh,
go.
there you are. Hi.
There we are. There we are. Hi, how are you?
I'm outstanding in a
Yes,
field.
Kevin is the communication freak. I know, and being on mute there doesn't help. Um, Kevin, your message is always so powerful. It's every time I see you speak, it's just moving. And I've seen some of the comments that were coming in through Facebook and people saying that your message is powerful. Your voice is so smooth. We got an excellent now. I mean, your message is really, really incredible. So I want to quote you on something that you've said. Communication is the ultimate equalizer, regardless of one's skill, position, appearance, or work ethic.
Yeah.
So, and again, if someone is not able to communicate consistently with succinct clarity, I mean, the efforts are likely to miss their desired goals.
Yeah.
So, if you could explain more, and I know you talk a lot about that, especially right now with COVID and people working from home and trying to communicate with each other. If you could just share a little bit more about that.
Well, I think, part of that, Connie, back in the day when I first began to speak with people, part of that probably likely came from a slight defense mechanism on my part because I did grow up in the middle of nowhere. I would not be by, America's America's definition. I am not a classically educated person in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And so I've known an awful lot of people just like you, even though you went back and got your master's. But I know a lot of
Uh,
people who have pieces of paper on the wall who are horrible communicators. They're tremendous at giving a speech or they're tremendous at explaining what they know from an educational standpoint. But from, as we would maybe say, from a street cred standpoint, or just from the specificity of being in the middle of a game, a busy day at the office, they don't express themselves well. And part of it for me has just come down to the fact that there is just a huge Grand Canyon between being
mm,
able to speak the language and actually communicate. We were never taught to communicate. We were taught words and we were
right.
taught how to say the words and we were taught how to answer a question. We were taught how to pay attention to directions. Go here, go there, don't do this. I mean, basically, the first
Right.
7 of our lives starts with do and don't. I mean, it's all
Right.
and so we understand the language, but there's a big difference in that and actually communicating. And with all due respect, even though we've been emailing for a long time, Connie, when you get into the written word and somebody can't hear tone of voice, you know me, because you
Right.
and I've known you for almost 4.5 years and we've chatted a lot. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And
That's
so
right.
when you suddenly start taking people who don't know you really well and you start typing things, that's just danger land. You're like, warning, warning, Will
Oh,
Robinson. And then all of a sudden now you're texting a group and a thread and a thing, and there's auto spell, and it's a nightmare. It's like a bad carnival and a tornado. And but still comes down to this. It still comes down to what I said. Your story of your life has a massive amount of effect on how you react and communicate because we don't tend to be proactive with our communication. And even when people have something to plan, sometimes
mhm.
fear, ego, and envy get in the way of remembering, wait a second, who's my audience? What environment are they going to be reading this in? And what environment am I in while I'm saying it? And
Right.
have I made sure that my intent, there's an old joke, Connie, that is 99% of the laws are for 1% of the people. And that's
Yep.
absolutely true. Hundo percent,
Mm,
right? It's a hundo
right,
within a
right.
99 and a one. Well, 1% of communication can destroy a pretty good piece of
Mm.
communication. 1%,
Well,
one
and throw
word
in
out of two sentences.
right, so throw in people again, more people are working from home now, so more people are texting, more people are emailing, more people are doing a lot of this, getting on and having these type of conversations, and I mean, the communication is easy to break down,
Oh,
and so
it's 100%.
right, right. So how difficult is it, and again, for an entrepreneur, especially right now, they want to conquer those entrepreneurial dreams, but yet it's how do I communicate with somebody who's not there or they're in
Right.
their house and again, they're trying to do homework with kids, taking care of mom and dad or trying to work or trying to fit everything in there. How do we bring all that around where people are
Okay,
communicating well?
I'm gonna say 2 things to that, and I love it because, that's a really good scenario you painted. That's, I think, several TV shows that exist right now. I do wanna say, I actually do believe, and my friends that I give a hard time with who know me very well, I mean, I drive them nuts, but I do
Yeah, you
believe
do.
that people I do, 100%. I mean, I'm still surprised that you're still sitting upright. Uh, People do mean what they say. I don't believe that people don't communicate most of the time believing they've communicated. That's why Shaw called it an illusion. They just don't say what they mean. Full stop. Let me
Mhm.
finish that statement.
Yes, please.
With regards to being stuck at home, with regards to having to change the platform and or because even talking to your face, it's still not the same as sitting in a room with you. It just isn't.
Right.
And it never will be for any of us. So I have a
Mhm.
metaphor that I actually pulled from being an actor that I used to say to actors for years. And here's what it is. I tell you what, let's pretend you and I have an email thread, or maybe even a fairly long text thread, which has probably happened a time or two. And let's print it out, Connie. And it's about some directions or a thing or a blah or just something, anything like that. Let's
Right.
print it out, put a staple in it, let's toss it on the floor. Let's go toss it on the floor someplace in a building where there's an HR person and there's an associate and there's a junior partner. And my
Mm.
question to you and to everybody watching is going to be the following. If a complete stranger picked up your communication, would they understand exactly what to do? And if the answer is no, we have to work on our communication specificity because
Wow.
I judge my communication. It's quite simple. by how many questions people have to ask me to understand what the hell I'm talking about. Because most of what
Wow.
I'm working for, as you well know, is got it. I just want people to see my communication and go, got it. Which means I got it all.
All right.
That's what I work for.
But yeah, do they really? Um, so what does your inner voice say to you, tell you about how people are communicating today? Because I know
Uh,
that you're very passionate about it.
I do think it is a product of our society for the last 2 decades, certainly the last 15 years. I'm not one of those people to sit around and blame, technology and digital technology and devices on everything. We excuse ourselves for a lot for this. I know that I'm from a different era, just like you are, but I'm pretty cool with the young kids. I mean, my stepson's 21, 20 actually.
Mhm.
So the bottom line is that we allow ourselves to be haphazard because we are communicating in a haphazard environment and state. And
Mm.
it takes a lot of discipline. Listen, I was listening to you talk before I came on, right? And the
Right.
dogmaticness, the see it through, the obsessive of, well, you don't have a master's degree, whatever the damn reason is somebody tried to give you, you decide to
Right.
push it through. This is just a matter of focus. And for me, it's actually the reverse. It's what a lot of us do. We tend to learn things sometimes or choose to get better at things out of a negative, whether it's losing weight or whether it's making a change in your relationship. Negative motivation or negative realities are a really good thing. And that's why I always go back to time. Time is
Mm.
short, time is valuable. How much do you value the time with your kids? How much do you value the time, honestly, Connie, wasting time in the way you want to waste time? We all waste time. I just don't want to waste
Oh,
time with
don't we all?
I just
Don't
don't
we
want to waste
all?
time with 27 extra texts about what time I'm going to meet you tomorrow. This like makes me
Right.
crazy, and I'm already crazy. So it's a short trip. I mean, this is what I'm saying: time, efficiency, enjoyment. Just the quiet disposition of enjoyment and chaotic, bad communication just makes your day tougher. And I don't want to live like that. That was
So
my
let's
driving
start to I know that was your driving point, and I mean you're so again clear on communication and what it is that you do and where you're at in your career. So let's we need to start wrapping it up. What do you want the world to hear from you?
that taking just an extra couple of seconds in various moments throughout the day will make your life better. It will make your workplace better. It will make your
Mm,
household more enjoyable. It will allow you to not have to repeat yourself as much. And it's liable to not only limit a certain amount of in frustration, but increase an amount of success. I mean, Connie, I did build a small business. I am and was an entrepreneur. And I did something
yes,
in
you
Hollywood
are.
that Hollywood had never seen before. My organization had never been done. And the only way that organization, based on what it was compared to it never being done, was the fact that I was defiant in what the message and the communication was going to be about who we were and sometimes who we weren't. And so it just requires a certain degree of focus. It has to matter to you that you decide one day you don't like having to explain yourself 3 or 4 times.
Mm,
Because what I want you to hear is simplicity. What I'm really discussing at the end of the day, honestly, Connie,
mhm.
it's just a form of being able to learn how to communicate from the inside of you based on what your audience environment intent is so that you are able to have a more simple life.
I love that. I love that. Well, everybody, Kevin E. West and Kevin, you have a special gift for everyone today. So if you want to share that really quick, and we're going to make sure that we're adding that link to our chat box for everyone as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to give a coaching session. Did I say 20 or 30 minutes? I don't know. Could be an hour. Listen, when people have to spend an hour with me, they might want to bring a cocktail. Uh,
Woo!
no,
Yep.
I'm happy. I'm more than happy to for whatever number of folks you're going to give it away to, or whatever offer that you'd like to have from your chair. I would be more than happy to sit and ask somebody a couple of questions about what the biggest challenge is for them, and spend a little bit of time just giving a couple of pieces of mentor coaching insight on how they can
Mm.
better communicate so that it improves their office, their team, their company, because companies have 3 employees, they have 3,000 employees. So
Let me put
um,
you on the spot. Let me put you on the spot. Tomorrow, the next 2 days, we have our VIP program. I'm inviting Kevin to come in and answer any of your coaching questions. And Kevin, we could talk about this more. You got it, baby. We could definitely talk about it more, but we're going to have to go. But everyone, head over to kevinewest.com/Connie Pheiff show gift. A lot of dashes in there.
See, it's a
So
long communication for that link. See,
that was a lot of communication. But check that out, and we're going to invite Kevin to our VIP session the next 2 days. So make sure you're there so you could ask Kevin some personal questions, some maybe one-on-one questions, and he could do a little coaching with you. So Kevin, I want to thank you for being here. You've been phenomenal.
no, thank you,
As
Connie. I
always.
appreciate it very much. Always, thank you.
If you'd like to book speaker Kevin E. West for your next event, call Talent Concierge at 570-906-4395.